Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Martin Grunburg. He is the author of The Habit Factor, actually a recent guest not too long ago. And he's written a new book called The Pressure Paradox coming out in just a few weeks here. So excited to have him back on here. Martin, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Andrew, and really appreciate the encore performance. Thank you.
All right. This is good. So your new book here, The Pressure Paradox, I want to dive into that. But let's get a prelude. We start off every show with a success quote. So why don't you draw one of the quotes you've got from the book and share that with the audience and how that relates with yourself and kind of your journey of how you got started with all this.
Wow, that's heavy. So with the habit factor, the quote was, all men's natures are alike. It's their habits that carry them far apart. And I'm sharing that because that's on the cover of the habit factor. What is on the cover of the pressure paradox is this quote: if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, I've been hearing this quote quite a bit.
Really?
There's all this frequency stuff going on.
Energy
dive
and
in.
frequency stuff going on.
There's a lot of that going on. Yeah, break it down for us.
Well, okay, so I can't escape it either, and I love that you're saying that. So the simplest thing to do if you're not driving is to draw an X here and an X about 4 inches to the right, and then circle each, and then realize that the first X is energy because that's you, okay?
All right, I'm doing it.
And then the other X is your goal, what I want to become or achieve. Guess what that is? That's energy as well. So here's the beauty. And this is why the habit factor, I think, was so significant and important. What the habit factor says is you get into a rhythm and a pattern, and it's the most efficient use of energy, behavior energy, and you will achieve your goal much faster. So here we are with the pressure paradox, and what I've realized is pressure helps forge these, and it's not just my realization, but it's really this idea, and there's incredible parallels here. I'm jumping around, but one is that habit is this trait of energy, right? Energy loves to assume naturally these patterns and rhythms and behaviors, if you will. So, for instance, the planets rotate at a certain pattern, the sun rises, the tides ebb and flow. And what we see all around us, Andrew, are patterns. Well, when it comes to our behaviors, they can be forged and influenced by our environment, in particular pressure. So if I'm sitting here talking to you and, God forbid, a meteor or something strikes right outside, that's going to change my behavior in a hurry, right?
Right, yeah. I'm following.
You follow that? Perfect. So that's the quick correlation is that energy, as it relates to the habit factor, is this idea that you want to forge basically intentionally patterns and rhythms within your behavior. So for instance, you have a morning routine that's the same, and I might have an evening routine that's the same, and that makes for a very productive and efficient life. Well, what happens, or it just so happens that when it comes to pressure, you look at institutions like the military or schools or your boss at work, right? And they understand the value, quote unquote, of pressure. But what happens with us is, I think a lot of times, and this really relates to our productivity, is we don't often set our own deadlines, creating pressure to help us achieve our goals. You following me?
Okay. So
Perfect.
The deadline is the pressure.
The deadline, as it relates to productivity, is pressure. In fact, we should back up a step. Do you remember, I think it was in 7th grade, they shared with you the scientific formula or physics formula for pressure?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, not to put you on the spot. It's very simple.
Okay.
It's P equals F divided by A. So pressure equals force divided by area. The reason that's significant is the amount of pressure we feel. If I tell you this, best way to do this is just give you an example. Andrew, you have to give a speech in 10 years. How much pressure do you feel?
Yeah, I got zero pressure. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it.
Now you got to give a speech in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So the area collapses.
Right.
And by the way, force, just so we define it, a force is, a scientific definition, is a push or pull on an object. So the area is the deadline. The force is how much it's influenced by the area. And then that's the pressure we feel. Again, extended deadline, no pressure. Short deadline, all sorts of pressure. So that's just one aspect. That's kind of this productivity aspect of pressure, and why what I'm suggesting here in the book is really that
The paradox.
Yeah, what we have is we have this understanding, just like we did with habit, that it has this negative connotation in our society.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you listen to news or something, and it's almost always, oh, the pressure's on, oh, this or that. And so the more I investigated this, it was very similar to habit in that, boy, they're both considered negative, but if you use them positively and intentionally, it's the quickest way to achieve your goal. It's a great tool. Both of them are forces of energy, to bring it back to the original question.
All right. So let's use both for example. We got pressure and we got habit. So we're kind of just going to use both of them. And not everyone may have listened to the episode you did. So for the listeners, if you want to learn more about the habit factor, you can go to knowledgeformen.com and look for the Martin Grunburg episode not too far long ago. But
you know what's crazy? Let me interrupt.
What?
So
Go ahead.
People who search, because they've told me this, I couldn't even believe it. When they search the habit factor in iTunes, your show comes up above my show, the habit factor show. And,
that's great.
I mean, that's just how big you are. You're so huge.
Wow. Thank you. I'm honored.
Yeah, no, anyways.
This is good.
I thought you'd like that. So,
I do.
So yeah, search the habit factor and Knowledge for Men will be the top results.
All right, there it is. Yeah, you can probably just Google that. Probably the same in Google. But okay, so a negative example negative examples of habit. I think a lot of people might be like, "What? Why are habits negative? I thought they were positive." And then of pressure, like why? I think that's a lot easier to feel like, oh, pressure, that's negative. But touching on the habit and then another example. So you can just throw some examples. Use me as kind of the guinea pig.
Okay, well, this idea that and I thought we talked about it, but it's not a big deal. This idea, if I go up to a high school kid and I say, we play a word association game, like green, they'll say grass, I say blue, they say sky, then I say habit, and they just look like a deer in the headlights. They freeze. Then sometimes they'll say rabbit. They don't know what to say. But ultimately what they end up getting to, Andrew, is biting nails, smoking, drinking drugs. It's this negative connotation. So here's another way to look at it. When's the last time you thought in Russian?
I thought in Russian?
Yes.
Never.
Perfect. And the reason is your reasoning and your logic are tied to your language and the understanding of the words you use. So what I'm getting at is we are hamstrung our kids by hampering them with this negative connotation. So if I'm a kid, I want to achieve my goal, but I cannot associate the word habit to goal achievement, I'm going to have some problems.
Yeah. Yeah, because habits are, what is the quote from Ben Franklin? He says, like, the sum of your good habits is go ahead.
No, that's it. It's something like, oh, goodness. The sum total of your character. No, you're killing me.
Oh, yeah, I got it. It's your net worth.
Your net worth
to the world is usually determined by what remains after your bad habits are subtracted from your good ones. Benjamin Franklin.
Perfect. Yeah, your character is the sum total, basically, of all your thought habits and all your behavior habits to this point. And he's just saying the net value you have left the world is after you subtract your bad habits from your good ones.
Okay. So, yeah, I got the negative kind of connotation with habits and then negative connotation with pressure. Like, what's an example you could draw for me?
Well, I think you see it kind of all the time. It's like, the guy's walking down there's several. So at the office, somebody can be like, oh my God, I'm under so much pressure. Or the guy's walking down the 18th fairway and the announcer's like, the pressure is so intense, or he choked under pressure. And what I'm getting at here is, once again, what we find, because we're circling back to energy, these are both traits of energy. Habit is a trait of energy. So is pressure. And by the way, are they good?
Yeah.
Or are they bad?
Yeah.
No, the answer, here's the answer. They're neutral.
Yeah.
It's like if you were watching Star Wars, Andrew, and Luke is on the good side of the quote unquote force, and Darth Vader's on the other side of the force, right? So the force is the same. Somebody's using it for good intentions.
Got it.
He's using it. So that's what pressure is. And the question then is, of course, how do you use it for good? And how do you reframe that? So it begins with a bit of knowledge. And so this was 4 years of study. And we kind of break down how pressure can be your greatest ally for, quote unquote, success.
And how can we use that to improve productivity, performance, and not make us feel like, to be able to give us some peace of mind too, or not just like all this pressure. It's just like, oh, we're just going crazy. I kind of think of like a Wall Street lawyer, a Wall Street like stockbroker. If there's just so much pressure, and it's like, okay, well, you're getting results, you're making a lot of money, but you look like you're digging yourself in an early grave. And then how can you use it to kill procrastination and really increase your effectiveness?
Yep. So that's the key. So those are the three big pillars. So pressure is a massive subject, and what I wanted to do was wrap this idea around three pillars where it can really most aid us, for instance, the best. And it's around productivity, performance, and what you just touched on, peace of mind, which is really a bit of the great paradox of pressure.
Okay.
You got that?
Got it.
So we touched on productivity a little bit, and how, again, organizations, businesses, military, they get how to use pressure for a positive output. And then the question becomes, are we doing that for ourselves? And how can we do it best for ourselves? When it comes to performance, really the idea of peak performance is I thought was worth studying. When you think of, name one of your great sports heroes.
Michael Jordan.
Perfect. That's great. Old school.
Yeah.
Okay. So he, of course, was known to perform well in the clutch, right? Have peak performances. And then the question is, why does Michael Jordan do that and somebody not? And then you get into what you realize, and I'm just thinking, somebody posted on my Facebook page today who read the book, how LeBron has this whole video on preparation. But what you realize is, I say there are three P's underlying, and I can't escape the P's, 3 P's underlying peak performance.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Planning, preparing, and practicing. And the fascinating thing is when you get into practicing, there are 3 levels of practice related to pressure. But anyways, so you start with planning, and the very best do this time and again, and I cite countless examples of how well they plan, how well they prepare, and how intensely they practice. And so that sets up a stage for the possibility of a peak performance, right? The other term you hear sometimes, Andrew, for peak performance is the zone, right? Somebody shoots 10 under par.
Yeah, or flow, or getting in state.
Yep.
Is that like a button that you could, it's like pressure? Does that help create flow or getting in the zone?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you could draw like a dotted box, you know, where the lines are kind of open, if you will.
Okay.
So you got a box.
All right.
And then you need, in that box, the box is called habituation, which sounds like a funny word, but the scientific definition for this is basically a decrease in stimulus. So I'll elaborate on that, but the box is called habituation. In that box, there are 3 key ingredients to a peak performance. And the reason there are 3, because if you take out any one of these, so there might be 100, but there are 3 core ones. And if you take out any one of these, you cannot have a peak performance. And we're going to start with number 1, and it's called confidence. So you just draw a circle in that box, right? And then the next one is relaxation. And of course, relaxation comes with a sense of confidence. And then the third ingredient, the third trait that's so critical is focus. So when you're saying, does pressure help create a state of peak performance? The answer is yes, because pressure brings in focus. So one of the things I talk about in the book is the first time a person drives a car, right? There's high stimulus, so they're not habituated, so they're not even in the box. They're not confident, and they're not relaxed, so they're tense. But what happens is 10 years later, that same lady's in the car. She's totally habituated. She gets in the car. She starts driving. She's totally confident. She's totally relaxed. She's so relaxed. She's putting on makeup at 50 miles an hour, which is,
driving with her knees.
Which is not funny. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And then the question.
Texting.
Yeah. Is that a peak performance? And the answer is no, because there's no pressure there. She's not focused. Yeah, well, actually, yes, she's habituated to the point where she's confident and relaxed, and she's semi-unconscious, absolutely. It's a great state to be in to be creative. I know, I probably wrote quarter of each book just driving. But what I'm getting at is focus is lacking. And so you're not, now you take that same person, you put them on a racetrack, put them in a NASCAR, doing 220 miles an hour, you've just added focus. Now where those traits overlap, you have the potential for a peak performance. Got it? So, and by the way, without pressure, it doesn't exist. It's not happening. So there's a reason, for instance, every Olympics, there's a reason that world records are shattered and Olympic records are set. And it's not in spite of the pressure, right? It's because of it. They are elevated. Their performance is elevated because of the pressure. And what's fascinating is, I know we started this with 5 minutes of how it has this negative connotation. Well, that's not an assumption. There's a book came out that has recently come out. It was published in February. I'm not even going to say the name of the book. It's all about pressure. And on page 3 or 5, they talk about how they studied pressure for 10 or 12 years. They had 12,000 participants. And right at the bottom, page 3, it says, here's the bottom line. Pressure is the enemy of success. And I almost just like hit the floor. I mean, I was just...
Why did they, come to that conclusion? Like, pressure is the enemy of success. I would think like wars and soldiers, like, they fight better under pressure.
Well, so again, it's neither good nor bad. The challenge is these poor fellows, and by the way, they're like PhDs and sports psychologists, and the sad thing is they got very dichotomous, one way in their thinking. So they didn't stop to consider maybe it is a neutral force. It can be bad if you haven't planned, prepared, and practiced, right? If you're not in the zone, if you're not habituated. I mean, there are all sorts of examples where air traffic controllers under great stress and pressure have made catastrophic mistakes. And so it could appear that pressure's bad. But guess what? It is bad and it is good. It's needed, absolutely needed, essential for productivity. And by the way, creativity. This is maybe a bit of a reach, but when you think about, consider Steve Jobs here, he is diagnosed around 50-ish, maybe even younger, with terminal cancer. What do you think that did in terms of pressure?
Yeah, definitely added, yeah.
Right. And so how productive, how prolific did he become, the last, let's say, 10 years of his life or 6 years? And can you, I'm not saying absolute, I'm saying it's a question worth asking. How much was influenced by knowing that time is short and I have to get very productive very quickly?
Right. That was his pressure, was his time. The time was ticking. Well, it's interesting, though. The time is ticking for him, but the time is ticking for all of us.
Did you just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's how the book starts. I mean, it's like, wake up. And by the way, I'm talking to me when I say that. I mean, this is my wake up call. It's like, it starts with, where is it? Yeah, you may delay, but time will not. And that is also Benjamin Franklin.
You may delay, but time will not. So the time is going to pass anyways. No matter what, the time is going to come. Or the time will pass. 5 years is going to come. And
whether you do anything or not.
Whether you have built successful habits and applied the correct amount of pressure on yourself or not. Right. But no matter what, the 5 years is coming. 2020 is coming.
That's right. Dead or alive.
Yeah.
Preferably alive.
So why do you say you have a section in here called the death of an entrepreneur?
Oh.
And what is that? Elaborate on that.
So I think you're familiar with EO. This goes back probably 4 or 5 years ago. We got this email sent out and it was tragic. It's this email. I have the whole email letter in the book, but essentially a guy's telling us that a friend not in EO, who was an entrepreneur, killed himself. And somewhere along the line in the letter, he says there was simply a constant pressure to perform. And so I used that letter. I was thinking, I got to work that into the book because for several reasons. One is, again, it's that negative connotation, that pressure was the demise of this guy, and it could very well be. So I think the obligation is, let's learn about pressure, let's understand it, so we can prevent tragedies like this happening. So I go on to explain do you remember? I'm going to quiz you. What is the formula for pressure?
It's like force divided by
area.
something area. What's on
There
top?
you go. No, force divided by area.
Okay, force divided by area.
So think about that. Pressure equals force divided by area. If I'm a person, and I am, and you're a person, and you're feeling pressure, you probably don't know this. EO, the organization, Entrepreneurs Organization, was founded because, for this very reason, an entrepreneur killed himself. And this goes back 20 years ago. Not the same situation, but a parallel situation. So EO was founded to provide a peer group where one entrepreneur can share with another the struggles and the challenges and what it's like to make payroll. And what does that peer group do if you're looking at the formula, Andrew? What happens to your area? It's expanded. The area, if instead of being one person, I'm 8 people and I'm sharing my troubles, my area has expanded. So yes, the force is divided, right?
It's like less pressure on the one individual.
Correct. You hit the nail on the head. So what's super fascinating is there's a hormone called oxytocin. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's known as the hugging hormone or the love hormone. Well, this is so fascinating. So when we're under extreme stress, we release oxytocin. And what that tells me is at a biological level, truly a biological level, our body's saying, reach out and hug somebody, expand your area to diminish the pressure. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
So now science is trying to understand this better, and so they're speculating, well, what does this mean if it's released as stress, but it's known as a hugging hormone? And there's the freaking formula right there. Pressure equals force divided by area, and our cells are telling us, expand your area, reduce the pressure, go hug somebody.
So this could kind of lead to the importance of like a mastermind group or just like-minded men or some sort of peer group where you can share a lot of the pressure that you have going on in your life, whether that's in a relationship, in your business, with family, children, whatever. Sharing those kind of concerns can help alleviate the pressure that one would have.
Absolutely. And it's proof at a biological level. It's not just, and by the way, nobody needs to know that. If you're going, and you're probably not, but you're going to AA meetings and people have the support group.
Yeah, it's good.
They walk out of there, they feel great. They don't have to know pressure equals force divided by area, or oxytocin is telling them to go hug somebody. All they know is they feel better because there's a support group. And that's fine. Nobody has to necessarily understand it. But in my studying, in the research of pressure, this is the sort of stuff that revealed itself. So,
okay, so then
you're spot on.
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of like the more that you share, like if we hold what's going on inside of ourselves, it's like that pressure. I'm thinking of like a soda can, like shake it up, that pressure is going to explode. And that being a person who's like just not having a support system, where he's not maybe sharing with just one other person, or he's just keeping it all inside. It's like he's gonna go crazy. And unfortunately, that story you shared about that man, that may have been the case. But
yeah, that's tragic, right? And by the way, if you read that letter, I don't have it right in front of me. I think it says somewhere in there that he didn't have, or there's speculation he didn't have anybody to share his challenges with. So it became a tragic, hopeless situation. And again, my thought is, well, let's understand pressure. Let's really understand it. Let's understand how it can be helpful, and let's understand where and when it's a challenge, how we can respond properly.
So how does this Let's go into that. Like, how do we use this as almost a force for good? It's like, I like the analogy of like, all right, the force, there's Star Wars. It's like, you can be on both sides. I really like that. I was like, all right, I like that.
You want to get more trippy? So
yeah, let's do it.
So the best analogy I can provide, and that's why that quote where we started, right? If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Best analogy I have for you is light. Light is also a force of energy, right? And what happens, Andrew, when light hits a prism, it refracts. And here's the incredible thing. It refracts into high frequency. I'm not kidding, right? High frequency, high energy, low frequency, low energy. So if you're familiar with the color spectrum, right? You remember that one? Back to school, Roy G. Biv. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. So red is the lowest energy, lowest frequency, and violet is the highest. And so what I'm getting at is, and I break it down in great detail in the book, but if you begin to think of pressure hitting you, and it's always going to hit you, which is one of the big fallacies of this other book, because if you just say it's the enemy of success and you're going to run from it, well, you're going to have, first of all, you cannot hide from it, right? So you need to, I think one needs to, and I wish I read this 20 years ago, learn how to refract, how to use the pressure positively. So you do that by beginning from and you really do have to, it's as simple as responding in a positive fashion. And I break out what that spectrum looks like in the book. So there's a diagram there. But next time you're under a great deal of pressure, if you just think about that formula, and then B, think about light is hitting me or pressure is hitting me. How am I going to refract it? Is it towards a hopeful, positive, outcome, or a negative one? And by the way, who knows for sure which way it's going to turn anyways? So what is the use or benefit of refracting in a negative fashion? You follow me? So that's the key analogy. And I think, from early feedback from the manuscript, it's making sense to a lot of people.
Yeah. What has been some of the kind of negative responses you've gotten around the pressure paradox?
Negative responses. Well, I'm trying to think.
There's none.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's early. I'm sure there's going to be some. The negative responses have just been little tic-tac things like changing some of the formatting here or putting a section there or maybe ending it a different way, but nothing substantive around, oh, well, you can't say pressure is good. And again, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it can be used for good. It's neutral. So anyhow, that, and then the third one we don't want to leave out, I know we may be getting tight on time, is the peace of mind.
Yeah,
right?
go into that.
Okay, so back to school, I keep sending you back to 7th grade, dude. There was a term called equilibrium. You remember equilibrium? You know what that means? Awesome. Do you remember the scientific definition for equilibrium? So, well, it's fascinating. So it's the equal offset of pressures. Allow that to sink in. The equal offset of pressure. So to have peace of mind, to have equilibrium, to have equanimity, it's not the absence of pressure. You must have pressure, and then you have to offset it. And that gives you equilibrium, balance, peace of mind. So what I did was I tested this theory, and I just said, well, who are the people that really struggle in society? It's funny. What was the author's name? He was just talking about this. He's like, nobody struggles more than the kids of extremely wealthy parents. And he's tripping around it, but what he's basically saying is they have no pressure. right? And so we have drifters in our society, unfortunately, a lot of times because they haven't been taught the value of pressure. So going back to equilibrium and peace of mind, the other way we can look at it is not just the people who are under distress because they can't find peace of mind, they can't find it because they're not challenging themselves, they're not growing. But then look at the people who were historically under extreme pressure. So it comes to mind like Churchill or Lincoln.
I was going to say Lincoln, yeah, but he aged quickly.
Yeah, well, and if you saw that movie Lincoln,
yeah,
he was incredibly serene, right? Like early on, he had all sorts of he had depression and some challenges, but later when stuff got real, right in the Civil War, he's walking around extremely serene and under unimaginable pressure. And the question is, how is that possible? Well, it's possible because he had pressure and he had gone through, his character had been refined. He went through so many challenges. He was able to offset the pressure, and that's what gave him this equanimity, this equilibrium, this balance, this peace of mind. You could look at Gandhi, who was, imprisoned, managed to basically free a country. So you could go on and on under intense pressure, right? Churchill, bombed by the Nazis under intense pressure.
Yeah, I'm thinking like special forces units operate, the whole mission is under intense amounts of pressure.
Well, and I talk a lot about SEAL teams. In fact, I've had 2 or 3 great interviews and lunches and share one instance of an interview in the book, which is very, I think, entertaining. So you're spot on. And what does the military do constantly? They plan, prepare, and practice. 7/24. Because what happens is the higher the stakes, and there's nothing higher really than your death, right? So when it comes to the military, the higher the stakes, the higher the pressure, there's only one way to offset that. And it's to plan, prepare, and practice. And that's what the military does 7/24.
Yeah. What I'm getting from this, there's a lot we're talking about, or it's just kind of, or it is a continuation of your first book, The Habit Factor.
Yep.
But here with the pressure paradox is the pressure gives you a higher sense of urgency to complete your goals, and you can accomplish those goals by developing habits.
Amen, brother.
Done. Case closed. Case closed.
You said it, brother. Yeah, no, very, very nice. Well put. That's kind of the whole idea. So once you have this awareness to use the force, habit, and intentionally craft, and this is paradoxical, you intentionally craft habits, which are mindless behaviors that will serve you mostly unconsciously, and then you literally wrap it with some pressure, which can be consequence. You can use peer groups, you can an accountability partner. You forge those behaviors more quickly than you set things like deadlines. And yeah, you're using the second force, pressure, to help the first force, habit, and you are transforming your being and achieving your goals much faster. It's kind of, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? I'm not trying to make it like it's a magic wand, but here's the thing. We go through life and these forces are always at play. So meaning we either have the option to take the reins and intentionally guide them, or they're just going to run wild and what will be, right?
Yeah. So you can use this to benefit you, or you could use it
you could not use it.
Yeah, at your downfall.
Right, to your demise.
To demise, yeah. So, okay. And I mean, we summarized it up really good here. and got a good idea of the pressure paradox and a continuation of the habit factor, which is a unique book on habits. Well, what kind of parting piece of guidance would you like to leave for our listeners today?
Parting piece. Well, the one part we didn't touch on that we might as well is this idea of paradox, and make sure everybody kind of understands that. So if I tell you, Andrew, that you are absolutely entirely unique and special, you would agree with that, right?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
and you are just like everybody else.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's unique and special. And so that's this idea of paradox, is that is here we are. It just sounds, it's not something you solve, right? It's something you appreciate. So you're unique and special, just like everyone else. Another one is the only constant is change, right? Constant, something that doesn't change, is change. So when you look at pressure and you understand that, and you think that pressure is harmful and it turns out to be good for you, that's, of course, one of the ultimate paradoxes. So there you go.
All right, guys. Martin Grunburg, you can follow up with him. If you can get both of his books on Amazon. The Pressure Paradox coming out in the middle of October 2015, and The Habit Factor is currently available right now on Amazon in physical and audio. Yeah.
We hope so. That's what I was going to say. We hope so. Mid-October.
All right, guys. Martin, it's been an honor having you here on the show again for your second time, and I'm happy to be able to support your upcoming book launch here. So it's been good. Thank you for sharing your story here with my community.
That's fun. Your community's great. You're brilliant, and it's an honor. So I appreciate the encore performance. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.